Okay, welcome to week 5, or I guess, hey, how's week 5 going since this lecture is going up so late? I'm sorry about the lateness of the lecture. As I've said before, I'm creating all new content for this semester, refocusing the humanities course around food, and so it's taken me time to develop some content to try to help you and help me get through the material. So that's one reason why this one came up late. And it's also just like middle of the semester, lots of crazy things going on. As I said in the message to you, you don't have to worry about including this lecture in your week 5 journal. You can include it in week 6 if you would like. I realize it's coming up late, and not everybody will have time to watch this before the journal is due tomorrow night. So here's the lecture or the talk. It won't be that long, actually. And what we're going to talk about today is just writing the humanities and how we do that in our textual experience journal, and how we're going to do that in our papers, and frankly, what the importance of writing in the humanities is. So we're going to do a little bit of talk here. Yeah, I'll admit right off the bat, my general gig is teaching of English, so writing is my thing, and I love talking about writing in a meaningful way, not just in a way of like here, write a 5-paragraph essay. So you're going to get a small sliver of that today, just as a way as we think through the processes of doing writing work in a humanities course. One of the first things a writing teacher will tell you is that you have to think about what the purpose of writing is. For the purposes of the humanities, we should think about, well, what is the purpose of taking the humanities? Why do we do this? Well, one of the reasons why we offer a humanities course here at the college, and why most colleges do, is because the humanities as a field, is a really particularly useful field for students, um, to provide them with a general educational experience. The humanities provides you with experience in the arts, and within analysis, and within the liberal arts, and within writing, and with reading, and within viewing, and with arguing. It gives you like an overall college experience to help you practice your abilities and your capabilities as a college student. In particular, for our purposes at Henry Ford College, um, the humanities course meets a number of our major outcomes for students. It teaches you independent and creative thinking. It teaches you critical thinking and information literacy. It helps you make decisions about how what is meaningful and what is not. It helps you make decisions about choices you make in your own study. It also fosters diversity. It leads our learners into a global society. It focuses on civil society and culture, and helps you understand what it means to exist in this society. And this class serves the public good. It helps you be engaged. And the picture here kind of shows you what we're trying to do with the humanities. The humanities puts ideas into your head, it puts knowledge into your head. And from that knowledge, it gives you sparks of ideas, light bulbs that pop up over your head as you encounter new information and new ideas. And the humanities helps you practice critical thinking, critical literacy, critical ideas, and critical communication. It provides you with the gears that make your brain work. And then, of course, because you've done these things, because you have ideas coming in, because you have ideas popping up, because you're practicing making those ideas work, you can speak about things in a meaningful way. The humanities asks you to become an informed citizen. Humanities might also lead you into jobs. I mean, if you decided to focus on the humanities will ask you to build some skill sets that are really useful in a number of different jobs in society. It's not just that the humanities are about looking at cool pictures and watching cool videos or listening to music. The humanities is actually training us to do real work as professionals in the world, or as real academics on a college campus. So there are a number of different jobs that the humanities might lead you into. Public relations specialists, that is doing uh, doing speaking for others. Uh, might lead you into human resource specialist, where you learn how to talk to people and manage them in a workplace setting. Might let you become a curator or a counselor as you learn about how people deal with humanities information and how to use them to help people. There are a number of jobs the humanities might lead you to. Again, the focus of this talk, the focus of our project is to think about the writing that you do in the humanities. But in order to think about the meaning of that writing, you've got to see how it's valuable out in the world. For my purpose, the humanities are far more important because they help us to learn how to experience, analyze, understand, and create culture as an engaged citizen. The photo on the left is of Ruby Bridges from, I should have remembered the date. It's like 1966 or something like that, when schools were being integrated, where where people were making arguments that black children should have the right to go to schools in white schools, and that black children should have equal access to education. Now, integration has all kinds of problems as a political issue, and we can go and look at those problems and ask whether or not integration was actually the best thing for black children. But at one point in our history, we decided that we had to make black black children have equal access to education that white children did. And one of the first markers of that was Ruby Bridges, a 6-year-old in New Orleans, Louisiana, who broke the color line and tried to go to an all-white school um, as a black child. And she had the legal right to do that. So what you see here is her leaving school that first day with armed U.S. deputy marshals walking her out. And why were they walking her out? Because the picture of the right shows just one small part of the amount of white protesters that showed up to protest Ruby Bridges going to a white school. Ruby Bridges has a fascinating history. She's now an older woman, and it's worth going looking and see how she took this moment of something where her parents and the culture around her put her into, and then made it into a meaningful moment for her life. What is important here as humanities students is that we can look at a moment like this, a moment of our history, a moment of our culture, a moment of the human production of education, and ask, what is meaningful? Why does this matter? And what can we say about it? This picture in the back is by Italian painter Raphael, and it is the Plato Symposium. You've got Plato and Aristotle walking here in the middle of the picture, and people standing around talking about deep ideas. Reading and writing in the humanities. What does this mean to read and write in the humanities? Well, the first thing to notice is that the humanities are a liberal art. Liberal arts are that field of that area of the college that is not the sciences, it's not the careers, it's not the maths. It is looking at the arts as a part of our society and the arts that build our society. And this doesn't necessarily mean paintings as arts. It means the arts of communication, the arts of writing, the arts of philosophy, the arts of history. The humanities are a liberal art. They are completely at home within the liberal arts. The liberal arts, as an area of the academy of college, focus on analysis, discussion, and arguments about culture in different fields in different ways. We focus on how we make culture meaningful and how we understand culture and how we might change culture to make it even more meaningful. Because the humanities are part of that, the humanities require us to be thoughtful, engaged with others, and authoritative in our claims about human production. They require us to engage in analysis, discussions, and arguments in a thoughtful, engaged, and authoritative way, which means as humanities students, we have to understand what it is that we're looking at. We have to gain that knowledge, and then we have to be able to make meaningful comments about it and listen to what other people have to say and be authoritative in our claims. It is key here to note, especially in our class as it's progressing, that the humanities are not just about appreciation. They're about professional discourse in an academic field. It is not enough in this class just to look at pictures or just to watch a video and say, I like that. The humanities are asking you to do something more, to be more engaged thoughtfully, emotionally, socially, and have something to say. One of the ways I'm asking you to practice that is through our Textual Encounters journal. And you've gotten one journal back. You're going to be getting another one back. I hope to have it back to you this week, but again, it didn't come back yet. Um, your Textual Encounters journal is asking you to engage deeply with each of the textual experiences you have every week. That is, every video, every reading, every picture, every lecture, every a piece of music, whatever it is that you're encountering, you're supposed to be putting that into your textual encounters journal. And the idea of this is both so that you record your experiences, but you also record your knowledges. So here's an example. I had you read a couple weeks ago the 4 keys to writing in the humanities. And so what I would expect is that your textual encounters journal, the entry for that week, will be detailed and thoughtful. So here's what I did. My textual encounters. What did I get out of this? What new knowledges did I pick up? Well, I need to have a focused topic in writing. I shouldn't try to write about it all. I need to pick a specific area within a specific text. I should use simple, direct, and specific language. I shouldn't try to get flowery or complex. I should be straightforward. There's a basic argument form, thesis to evidence, counter evidence to conclusion. I want to look up Dakota spiritual geography. That was an example that was used in this writing, and it sounds really interesting, so I want to look it up. I should visualize a paper that I'm creating as a legal case. How am I persuading a jury? That sounded really interesting to me, interesting way to think about my writing. I need to remember documentation, documentation, documentation. Uh, there's a craft of writing that is important, and I should pay attention to that craft, particularly within the humanities. And author Steven Pinker says, expository writing requires language to express far more complex trains of thought than it was biologically, oh, my typing got messed up there, than it was biologically designed to do. Craft must be mastered through practice, instruction, and feedback, intensive exposure to good examples. That sounded meaningful to me, to think about writing as being something more complex than what our brains biologically do, and that we have to really practice this to make it meaningful. Those were the new knowledges I got. And we might think of those as just notes that you take on your reading so that you learn from it. And then I've asked you to do a couple of other portions of your journal, resistance notes. In this case, I'm asking you to think about ways that you're resisting the text or ways that it's causing you complications as you read it. For my resistance notes for this piece of writing, do I really need another handout on writing? This handout doesn't really talk much about humanities, doesn't really talk all that much about humanities. Most of this sounds like good advice about writing, but not so much about writing in the humanities. I guess the Pinker quote and the examples are humanities based, but how is writing in the humanities different from writing in English or in the social sciences? So, these resistance notes might be things that I want to talk about in discussion boards, or might be things I want to talk about in class. If I want to send an email to the professor, these resistance notes might help me do that. It also helps me understand my own academic reading process. The last thing I asked you to think about in your textual encounters journal was how you would reflect or apply the knowledge that you've got. And the length of this section probably depends on how engaged you were. 4 keys to writing in the humanities is not all that interesting. Reading the Rule of St. Benedict, I would have had a whole lot more to write here. So here's what I said with reflection and application. I don't know if this reading helped me a great deal. I guess it was important in reminding me that writing in the humanities is academic writing, some decent advice, but not much detail to help me create my journals or projects. I suppose the best part of this was that it helped me think about writing as a craft. Overall, what I want you to think about with the journals is a few different things. Remember what it says in the original assignment, and remember what we've said about it before. The journals are first and foremost a place for you to encounter the textual experiences you have for this class, to make them meaningful, but also to show me that you're engaged with them, that they are meaningful. They're a place for you to record knowledges, to record your resistance, to record your experience, and they are also a place where you're showing me that you're doing the work. It is a way for me to see that you are actually reading, observing, watching, listening to all the different stuff we're doing in this class. Since we are not in the classroom, I need some written evidence that you are engaged in this class. So I see some of that through discussion boards, but not near enough. So the Textual Encounters Journal are a place for that academic practice that will show me that you're engaged. You're also writing a paper. And this is the academic project that I signed last week. It's going to be due in week 8. And what the paper is asking you to do is pretty straightforward. It's not a hard assignment, except for it's hard because of what you're going to do with it. The setup is pretty easy. Here it is. Produce an academic project that analyzes or interprets at least one cultural text that we have covered in this class this semester. So when I say cultural text there, I mean you can't really do the 4 keys to writing in the humanities. That's not a great cultural text. Pick one of the texts that we've used this semester and look at why it's meaningful for you. The second piece of guidance here for this project. Your project must be developed for an audience of interested persons who may or may not be part of this class. So you're thinking about a project that will say something to your audience in a meaningful way about the thing that you've looked at. And now keep this in mind. That means for people in this class who have seen this, who have read it themselves, who have experienced it themselves, and maybe drawn their own conclusions about it, or somebody outside of this class who might encounter this text and read it themselves and understand it themselves. And now they want to look at what you have to say about it. Number 3, your project must make your object of analysis more meaningful to your audience by showing how and why that object is important in culture. You've got to do some analysis here, some thinking, some breaking it down, pulling it apart, and figuring out why it's meaningful so that you can show that new meaning to your audience. Why should I read your paper or look at your presentation on I don't know, on the Anthony Bourdain episode, if you're just going to tell me what I already know about it, that it's about Iran, and it's about politics, and it's about food, and he meets a lot of people. I can go watch the episode to get that. You need to tell me something more about it through your analysis. Number 4, the careful work and thought that goes into the college level work must be evident in your production. You must make sure your work shows the sophisticated thought, careful editing, and hard brain work. You also must make sure that your work is academically honest by using adequate citation if necessary. So this is just a basic guideline for doing academic work. You got to show that you're involved. You can't just do something simple here that shows no thought or no effort. And you got to show that you are doing this in an academically honest way that shows academic integrity. It shows that you care about what you're doing. And the last guideline, your work, either an essay or another academic form, must be equivalent to a 4-page paper. The written work must be presented in MLA format. This is a pretty straightforward assignment. Just go pick one of the things we're looking at and make it meaningful. And the way that you make it meaningful will be through your thoughtful analysis and engagement with this work. Now, we just went through these guidelines. Let's do real talk, okay? And I'm not sure if this is any more helpful than what I just said, but let's try to cast it in a different way. Think about this dish on the right, this chickpeas-based dish. This dish takes a lot of effort to make and make well, and it's going to require ingredients and time and thought and preparation. You've got to bring the elements together to make it meaningful. So here's some real talk about your project, which might be another kind of dish. Create a project of substance that shows that you're reading, thinking, and caring. That's what I want to see. I want to see that you are reading, thinking, and caring about what you're doing. And I want to see substance. I don't want to see something simple or meaningless. Number two, find an angle, an analytical method, a thing that you care about. Don't just try to find a paper topic. Anybody can write a paper topic about Muslim halal foods and why they're meaningful as a response to Anthony Bourdain. Instead, I want you to find an angle, an analytical method, a thing that you care about that only you can share with your audience. Make one of our texts more meaningful. And here's the key thing with this. Choose a text that requires your voice, that makes your writing essential, that makes us read it and say, oh, now I see why this is important. Or, oh, I had never thought of that before. I'm so glad I've read this. Make your writing meaningful by making one of our texts more meaningful. Make sure it's your voice. Next one is a pretty obvious one, but I need to say it because people try to find some way to get through this assignment without actually doing the work. Don't cheat. Cheaters suck. Don't have somebody write your paper for you. Don't go buy a paper. Don't copy and paste text. Don't run it through ChatGPT. Don't try to avoid the work of this assignment. I don't want you to work super hard. I don't want you to spend 40 hours writing this, but I do want to see meaningful work. And that leads us to our last real talk. Be prepared to show that your work is authentic and informed as a humanities-based project. This takes us back to the nature of humanities and what it is. Make sure you are doing a humanities-based project. You're not just doing a research paper. In fact, don't do a research paper. You're not just writing a comparison contrast. You are doing something in the humanities. Doing that, following the basic guidelines, following this real talk, means that you can do something meaningful here as long as you're thoughtful and engaged. You're reading and you're caring. Let me just end with one suggestion for things you might do. There were some other suggestions on the sheet, and we've got a great discussion board that's going on right now with all different kinds of suggestions of things that people might do. But here's another suggestion. Use our weekly focus as a guide. Here are some different approaches you might take to one of our texts. And you could take a text that we had in week 4 and use the approach from week 1. But here's what we've studied so far, whether you've recognized it or not. The first week we were looking at foods and gods, and in that week we were thinking about the importance of cultural origins, of understanding cultural origins when we understand the humanities. The second week we were looking at family cultures and how our families serve as a foundations of meaning. They give us one access to meaning in the world. We have to start with ourselves and our families in order to understand what it is we engage with. Week 3 we were looking at nutrition and nourishment, and there I was asking you to think a little bit about the difference between the science and the humanities, to think about the humanities as an academic field. Week 4 we were looking at rules of food. And there, in looking at all those different rules, I was asking you to analyze cultural conventions and rules as a way of accessing culture. There are many things we can look at when we look at a poem or a song or a movie, but if we look at the rules, it gives us an interesting angle, and there are other angles there as well. This week, we're looking at politics and food. That's a type of applied analysis of cultural texts. So we're taking a political lens and we're asking, how is this issue political? How is this text political? How does this text affect the political world around it? And maybe, how do our own politics make us intersect with that text? Now, I didn't give you a separate lecture on politics and food this week because I think the experience of looking at these texts helps you do that. Think about how you did that and apply it to other texts. Next week, we're going to look at a craft company. That is, we're going to look at corporations and the ways they pretend to do art. And from that, we're going to think about arts and aesthetics. That is, what makes something artistic. what makes it meaningful as a piece of art. Those are our topics so far this semester, and I think any one of those would make for an interesting space to find your angle, to find what your voice has to say. I'll leave you with just the thought that we live in a culture of all different kinds of images and words and ideas. You are a person who lives in this culture, and you should have things to say about images, thought, ideas, and arts. You should have things to say about the world around you. This paper, this assignment is an opportunity for you to do that. Your journal is an opportunity for you to practice that. Keep working, keep thinking, keep reading, keep analyzing, keep writing to become the humanities student that you want to be. Have a great week. I'll be posting new work here in 2 days. Take care.